Number one is be really deliberate with the information that you share online. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't share it. Understand who you're sharing it with and how that information will be used. Number two, always protect your identity. Using things like multi-factor authentication and strong passwords, those are table stakes. Those are the basics. Everyone should be doing that from the earliest ages. There are going to be lots of people coming at you online. They're going to be coming to you online. Always questioning sources of information, questioning sources of communication, and ensuring their authenticity before proceeding to share information is really important. I've been in cybersecurity now for 4 years, and I've been in technology for 30. And I have a family, and the way that I think about my life every day has fundamentally changed. Not that I'm more paranoid, not that I'm more fearful, but I am cautious. And I think the thing for all of us to recognize is that there are intended and unintended consequences of our online lives. And thinking about this notion of digital trust very deeply is very important for families all over this world and in any industry, in any line of work. So when I'm being attacked, it's not just about me, it's about everyone that I come into contact with, online and offline. And so it starts with this deep awareness that I am interconnected. And in this hyper-connected world, everything that I do is either contributing to or taking away from this notion of digital trust. And so I have to understand the impact of my own actions as an individual, and then as a member of a corporation and as a member of society. And so my own individual practices, the practices of every citizen, has this spider web effect. It impacts everyone else around us. Gen Z was born with social media. Gen Z lives their life online. For someone in my generation, that can be scary. And so rather than combating or denying this next generation and how this next generation operates online, I think we have to lean into it. So rather than deciding what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do online, let's just make sure that the population understands that their decisions need to be deliberate. I never want my actions online to be accidental or for me to be a victim of someone else's decision. "60% of organizations are reporting that they are worried about AI. And that AI produces a lot of new risks in the cybersecurity landscape in their companies. But the thing that's concerning is only about 37% of those same organizations say that they're taking action. And they're taking action to make sure that AI is deployed safely in the organization. That's a gap we can't afford anymore.
There's despair and despondency, there's disruption, displacement, and we're dealing in a world right now where you've got climate change, you've got the rise of conflict, the duration, the ferocity of conflicts is even harder, and you've got all that existing inequality. And it's my job and my team's job to try and bring together the system, I hope the movement, the humanitarian movement, in response. I'm a sort of diplomat to my core, and I believe in that last 3 feet, that interaction between humans, which is irreplaceable. And if we are going to rise to the challenge of this disrupted world that we're living in, disordered world that we're experiencing right now, then we do need these moments when people come together and try to fix problems together. That's the space we're in right now. It's clear to me that the international institutions can't do this. Governments, nation states can't do this. Business can't do it. Civil society can't do it. So it's only by joining those dots that we're going to build the sorts of coalitions that can get out there and meet these challenges. I think we've got to be very, very careful about throwing aside this scaffolding that was built with such patience and tenacity by previous generations after the Second World War, when we'd seen the cost of not talking to each other, the cost of not trying to find these global solutions. Few people are in the market right now for defending institutions, defending hierarchies. The world is becoming more disordered. But in the midst of all that, you need somewhere to resolve these crises. There are some brutal choices for us as the UN humanitarian system, and these are the toughest moments for me and the team. We've already taken those difficult choices to try to reach 190 million of those 300. Just think about what that means in terms of 110 million that we've decided that even if we get the money we need, we're not going to reach. There's a message to the incoming American administration that we need you engaged. You can't expect that these fires that we're raging around the world won't reach you. These pandemics will reach you. The effects of the climate crisis will reach you. Massive migration as people escape conflicts will reach you. So if you want to make America great at home, you've got to be out there trying to build a golden age for the world as well, and not just America. And then I think there's a message for other governments that if this is the moment that America pulls back from the world, retreats from the world, I hope it won't, then others have to emerge to fill that vacuum. Others have to step up. We have a great example of partnership with the private sector, which is our Central Emergency Response Fund, which at times responds in as little as 6 minutes to crises, cyclones, massive displacement of people, and as a way of mobilizing really fast intervention. And we've got brilliant private sector partnerships with that.
We are at a pivotal moment in history, right? And I do feel that the more you can look back, the further you can look ahead. And I think it's important because as we go through a period of turmoil, take the AI revolution, for instance, right? There are several instances in past history that we can go back to. The Industrial Revolution, the launch of the railroad, the mechanization of industries. And really, they give us a template about how technology really spreads, how the adoption is, and how really in the long run it ends up reshaping societies. I'm actually fascinated bizarrely by the American Civil War and the personality of Abraham Lincoln, who I think is one of the most exceptional and wonderful leaders ever to emerge in history. So there is a little bust of Lincoln in my home office. And I'm really inspired and drawn by his character, the various adversity he went through in early childhood, the strength of character he demonstrated in leading the Union during the Civil War, and sadly the tragic end he came to. When he became the president, the Union was pretty much falling apart. Nobody felt that he had the personal characteristics to be able to lead the union. But the natural eloquence that he had, right, and he wrote so beautifully, allowed him to string together the sentiments that really appealed to people across the board. Reading history really gives you that ability to detach yourself from the here and now and to think sort of maybe more clinically or more sort of holistically at a situation. If you're in the moment, in the heat of the moment, sometimes you lose that perspective. Even though it's been many, many decades since I left university, I read extensively, right? In a sort of a good year, I'll try and read at least 60 or 70 books. And I think that habit of lifelong learning, again, is something I picked up, from my undergraduate days, if not before.
We're seeing it 2024 being the most expensive year ever with humanity on planet Earth in terms of extreme events hitting the economies around the world. We also have the latest economic assessment showing that already by 2050, we will risk having almost 20% reduction in global GDP because of extreme events and climate impacts. We are, within the next 10 years, going to permanently go through 1.5, very likely, and we'll have an overshoot period. And this overshoot of at least 30, 40 years, taking us to 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, before we potentially come back to 1.5, if we're able to decarbonize the global economy. So it will get worse before it gets better. So we will be looking back at 2024 as a quite harmonious year. That is the harsh reality we're facing. Transitioning towards decarbonized, sustainable production systems in business gives competitive edge. So even without subsidies, you can earn more, get better returns on investment through sustainable investments. And of course, there's a transition phase, but there's no doubt, I would argue today, from the evidence we have, that the transition to sustainability is an opportunity rather than a sacrifice. So one, of course, is that there's so much more evidence than transitioning away from oil, coal, and gas and moving towards a renewable energy provision and electricity-based production system reduces costs from the oil barrels and the coal to much, much more efficient and cheaper energy sources. By moving from linear production systems to more circular production system, you build up more resilient value chains as well. So you're able to be less dependent on one source of phosphorus or one source of methane or one source of rare earth metals. You can become, you have a portfolio of options. Diversity plays as well for business as it does for ecosystems. But if you fail to make that investment, we have so much evidence that the costs of a business as usual pathway exceeds with a factor, often more than a factor 10, the earnings you make on the short term. You can run an unsustainable profit-making business if you just think of the next quarter, 2 or 3, but that will cost you massive invoices down the line. Admittedly, it's tough. Things are costing more than expected. It's more challenging than expected in this first step of the transition. But on the long term, we know where the landing zone is, and we have enough evidence that that will be a winning path.